A number of people had consistent questions across the submittals for week one in both Design 320 and 330. So I thought I'd put together a little bit of an example sheet, an example presentation to help you figure out how to complete or make your work a little bit better. So the first place that had consistent questions or just left blank was visualizations of my work. So let's see what it asks. It says, create an achievement blog that presents visual evidence of your work. Visual means it's an image. It's something you look at versus necessarily have to read all about it. So that's the key spot right there. Present visual evidence of your work, and it's really a summary of that. So that's what goes here. So here's a nice example of one. Here's some work, and remember, this is all about preparation. So you want to show that visual evidence that you did preparation. So here's an obvious one, your preparation skill. Here's one that says whether you know a lot about water quality or not. And here's another one that says, are you prepared to do email communication? So that's some visualizations of the work that was done. And this is a perfectly good way of doing it. There were some people that were kind of confused about what to put in here. Deliverables are things you would deliver. So there's what you did, that's your work, and then there's deliverable. What are you handing over to your client? What is the thing that you're getting paid for? Or in this case, what are you getting graded on? So you would list your deliverables. And this one lists each one of the items that are being delivered. And notice they're not necessarily in order. Here they're in on this day. This person worked on these two and got them ready to deliver, and they've set up a schedule. So this is very well done, and it's nice work. So let's take a look at another example. Here's another example, and I've crossed some stuff out so that I'm not identifying it. Although these are really nice submittals, so. But I didn't ask the person ahead of time. But this is nice work. Again, this is a nice way of showing it. This is one of the deliverables. And so putting that visualization on here in its entirety is rather nice. But this also is nice where you're just making a nice big print of it. And here is the email portion. And now this has a couple of nice features to it that I want to talk about. Just in general, the design of this layout is very nicely done. There are some design rules that are often followed that have been set up forever. And one of those is the golden rule of design. And the golden rule works off of Fibonacci's sequence or Archimedes sequences. And essentially it works on a 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, fifths. So it uses the Fibonacci series. So this cut it into 1/3, 2/3. And then the remaining portion over here was cut into 1/3, 2/3. This is a very excellent design layout that our eyes tend to like. Now, I'd say the only thing that could make this one a little bit better is to work at your bleed or your margins so that this gap matched this gap, and then these are already even, but as this got moved over, these would re-gap just a little bit. And we'll talk about leaving gaps in just a minute, but this is just an excellent layout using the 1/3, 2/3 principle. I don't know if it was on purpose, but good job. And again, this is visualizations. Here's an image, and an image. Okay, and so let's take a look at another example. Here's another really nice one that's really cutting it in symmetry, but it's got the 2/3, 1/3. And then this one is half half, which works. You don't always have to use the same thing all the time. But what I like about this is this size with the coloring is opposite of this side in the coloring. So these are, if you're into and now look, I'm a mechanical engineer and I think that this shape, tic-tac-toe, looks really, really cool. But I've been around graphic designers enough to know that there are some things that look really nice. And then, of course, the shadow lets you draw your eyes to what's inside the shadow. Some people frame it hard. Some people use shadows. You should know that certain shadows do not print well, even though they look good on the screen. So you, as you do your graphic work, you'll want to be cognizant of what programs you're using and things like that. So this is another nice layout. And again, here is an entire slide, portion of a slide, portion of a slide. But it shows a nice visual of everything that was happening. And again, here are the deliverables. I see 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 1-4, 1-5, 1-6, and 1-7. And about how many hours it took. And there was time set aside. And mostly, there's a fair match. Not perfect match, but you wouldn't expect a perfect match. So this is another good one. So what goes on this? Because you're going to see this every week. Every week you're going to see something like this. What goes on here? Visualizations are images taken from the work that you're submitting in your deliverables that show a broad understanding of what you've done. Visual evidence of your work. And it's a report. Okay, somebody's going to look at this and make a decision as to whether this was indicative of a lot of work or a little work, high quality work or low quality work, or somewhere in between, or work that's on task or work that's totally irrelevant to what we're doing. Now, the ones I showed were all very, very good. Okay, so there's some of that. Now, the next area that had a lot of questions, and let me make this a little bit bigger so that you can see it. The next area was on margin work, being able to have margin. Look, see, I didn't do a very good job here. When I moved that, I lost some of this stuff, but that's okay. You really can't see any of that anyway. So look, when you're given a frame, that's like a page. And if you have stuff laying off of the page, it just doesn't look like you took care. So you want to make sure that your work is framed on the page. Now, I will say that there are some excellent graphic artists that can do a very, very nice job where it does not do that. So if you have graphic art skill, you don't have to do this. But the ones that I marked up were not excellent graphic art skills. They were just they just looked like there was not enough care in the placement. And in general, your work should be placed inside the frame. Not always, but in general. And you should work on that. And you should have some gap, some bleed on the side where it's actually where you don't bleed over and you don't touch. There should be some margin. Now your side margins can be equal or should be equal, and this is a very nice example, and your top bottom should be equal. And so here's another one that you'll see. Very nice margins set around this so that my eye is drawn to the box, but then I don't get drawn to, why is that sticking out? Now again, I will tell you there are some excellent graphic artists who do beautiful work with stuff hanging off the pages. But in this case, I believe you're going to be much better off getting it all the way in. And in most engineering and documentation applications that you're going to live in, you're going to want them inside. So here's another example of one. And you can see nice margins. Okay. And they don't have to be the same top and bottom. They don't have to be the same. Okay. Now it's really important. These were all well done where the aspect ratio was maintained. So that's good. This looks very, very, very nice. All right. And so you don't have to take up the whole box. It is nice to have it centered in some fashion. But there we go. So that one looks good also. And that's it. I think those are the ones that we want to talk about. Okay. So, take care for your margins. Make sure that they're well done. And present your work in the visualization section.